Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today, as part of my series on herbs and their benefits and uses, I want to talk to you about the herb sage. I love working with herbs and sage is no exception. The smell of fresh sage in a room gives a real herby, earthy and slightly spicy scent. Imagine the smell of pine in your kitchen. It's got a sort of crisp, green, natural scent, reminding you of being outdoors. It's a herb that promotes a sense of calm, clarity, and balance. And indeed, the essential oil is often used in blends to reduce stress and anxiety levels, acting as either a middle balancing note or a top note depending on the variety. There is a cautionary note on this herb that you need to be aware of. And the reason for that is that sage contains thujone. And so you need to avoid it if pregnant or you've got high blood pressure or diabetes. And always dilute this if you're applying it to the skin in any way. Make sure you've got it within some sort of medium. Large amounts of thujone can be toxic, leading to things like seizures, nausea and vomiting, so you don't want that. Having said all of that, on the flip side, it's also got an enormous list of benefits, which I will highlight to you when I do some of the demonstrations on how to use this herb, particularly in beauty products. Now, sage is well known for its flavouring in dishes such as soups and stews, and even the leaves, you can deep fry them and get them really crispy. But it has fantastic benefits when used in homemade beauty products. And this is due to the fact that it has antioxidants, it is anti-inflammatory, and it has antimicrobial properties. So this makes it really useful for anti-aging products, skincare and hair health as well. It can be incorporated into toners, also masks and scrubs for the whole body. It can be infused as an oil where you literally just infuse the leaves, and I'll demonstrate that a little bit later. It can also be used in hair rinses and even makes a fabulous herbal tea infusion. Sage is a hardy evergreen, so it's easy to grow in containers or borders in the garden or on the windowsill indoors. So I've got a few varieties that I grow, and I've brought some of them in to share with you. Here's one that we've got here, which is the tricolor sage. And I bought this one in from outside as, let's just say, I'm not quite sure it's very happy. We have had a really, really wet winter, or wet start to the winter in the UK. And in fact, I think most of my sage, alongside some of my other herbs, are just feeling that water is just a little bit too much, and we have had some torrential rain. So I've brought it inside because during the winter time, sage prefers it to be just a little bit drier. This variety I really do like, more for its colour than anything else, although it does have that lovely spicy sage smell. It has the most wonderful green and white leaves, and even in the summer, hence the name tricolour, it adds pink and purple hues to that as well. Just a quick reminder, as I have mentioned previously, to keep the original labels with your herbs, as well as helping you to identify in your herb garden what's what. It's also full of really useful information. This one, for example, talks about the culinary uses. So very useful in stuffings, stews, poultry dishes and salads. And I would agree on the salad, just adding that little bit of colour that you've got here just adds that extra dimension to the salad. Okay, so let's put this one away. And I'll just introduce you to the next variety. And this is Sage Icterina. And that's a little dwarf shrub with these soft, variegated leaves, and they're a mixture of green, yellow and gold. And as I said to you, they are recovering from the dampness, but they're looking a lot better than they did a few days ago. It's got quite a strong savoury flavour, this one, so it's typically grown to add to food. But I really do like that one. And this one is normally quite glorious, known as purple sage, but as I said, it's in recovery mode at the moment. And this one's known for its grey-green leaves with a slight purple tinge to it. It prefers the sun, so as I said, not at its best at the moment, but I love this one because it makes a great herbal infusion. So a nice tea that is quite refreshing. So useful again. Lovely label. Stuffings, adds flavour to meat and poultry dishes, salads, spring clover cheese, and can make a herbal infusion. So that's interesting. And then, as I've got here, so I've got a couple that I've had on my windowsill. This is the last one I'm going to show you, and this is common sage, also known as garden sage. And this is the one that I use for my beauty products, as well as the one that I have in the garden. I have a very large bush of this in the garden. If I do use leaves from the one in the garden, and I would say the same to you, you have to be really careful if you're going to use them in beauty products. Just make sure they are thoroughly washed. And sometimes if you haven't got time to do that, because it can take a few washes, then just use the one that's grown indoors, because it will be that much cleaner. So let me move on to the first of my demonstrations, and this is a sage and honey mask. So very simple to make, very straightforward. And to do this, you need to chop up your sage quite finely. So I've got some leaves that I collected earlier. And what I might do is just snip these slightly smaller, otherwise we might be here for a very long time. There we go. Oh, the smell coming off that is absolutely amazing. So what you want to do to start with is obviously chop these herbs as finely as you can. And sometimes it's easier just to put them in a blender. It really depends on personal preference. If you want a mask that has lots of very small grainy bits in, then you just keep going for as long as you can. And I do actually find this quite therapeutic. And while you're doing this, you can smell the oils that are coming from the leaves. As I said, it depends how much time you've got as to whether or not you want to get this really fine, or you can put it in a blender. If you do put it in a blender, just take your time with that a little bit, because you don't want it too fine. You want it to have a little bit of bite still. But as I said, it's a personal preference as to how fine you want it, really. The other alternative is you can use dried sage, which is perfectly okay to use as well. I think that will be okay for the purposes of the demonstration. So what you need to do is take a small bowl add in some of this honey, and it's really just enough for what you want to do. But you want to make it sticky and have a little bit of moisture to it. And with the honey, you're increasing the antioxidant ability of the face mask. And literally take some of this. I'm just going to demonstrate it on my hand here, but what I would suggest you do is pop that on your face. The smell is wonderful. And then I would literally go and relax somewhere for half an hour with that on your face. And then make sure that obviously you wash that off. Don't want to walk around with sticky honey, but do wash that off. And that lingering smell of Sage is amazing. Okay, that leaves me to, sorry, let me just move that out of the way. So that brings me to my second demonstration, which is a facial toner, but it's a sage and rosemary facial toner. I think the two blend very well together. So in order to do this, let me just get my few little gadgets out. And in order to make this, just find yourself a jar. You don't need to go out and buy expensive jars. This is just an old pickle jar that's been cleaned and sterilised. And then what I've done is I've actually gone into my garden and I have literally taken some rosemary and you literally put that into your old pickle jar. Some sage going in, and you can build this up. This is sage from my wonderful huge sage bush in the garden, and this is from my rosemary tree. And you want it quite full. And the aromatic smell is just amazing. I think that's probably enough. Be aware it can get quite messy. So all you would do is fill the jar with hot water and then leave that with its lid on to one side, and then you can put it in the fridge. And I happen to have one that I made yesterday, and oh, that is the most amazing smell. That is just wonderful. So what you need to do is obviously decant some of this in, just enough to fill up your little bottle, and then that can stay in the fridge for a couple of weeks. Obviously if you want it longer than that you need to put a preservative in it, but it should be fine. I prefer to use these little travel bottles, but obviously some people prefer to use glass jars for this, which is fine. And then you have the most amazing toner. Smell is amazing. Oh, it's gorgeous. Smells like you're outdoors. Okay, that brings me to my last demonstration, which is to make a body scrub. And again, you want to chop up your herbs. You probably want them a little bit finer than this. But as I said, you can do that in a blender, or as I said, it's perfectly acceptable to use dried sage. But what you do want is the mixture to have a little bit of coarseness to it, because it's going to be used as a scrub. But you're also going to get some coarseness from what we're going to add in. So let's start off with a bowl, and probably about a tablespoon of that is sufficient. And then what you want to add to your chopped sage is a good tablespoon of salt. You can use sugar if you want to as well. And then what you want to add to this is some form of carrier oil. Now, I would suggest the best ones are probably something like coconut or sweet almond or avocado, which I have here. And you want to make sure it covers that. And you can play around with this ingredients till you get it to a level that you're happy with. I think it needs a little bit more salt actually. Yeah, so if you put too much oil in, do just add some more salt in. The other suggestion I would make, just to give that atmosphere of sage, and this is clary sage here, well known as a balancing oil. You only need 1 drop. Okay. And you can smell that as well. As I said, a good balancing oil. Right, and then you would take that and use it literally as a body scrub. It's got all that goodness in there of the, not only the sage, but also the avocado oil as well. So obviously do this somewhere where you can make a mess, because it can get quite messy, but that I think will work very well. And you can just rinse that off, and your skin is amazingly soft from that. As I said, can get quite messy, but sometimes it's quite fun just getting mess everywhere. There we go. So that is 3 demonstrations of 3 different ways that you can use sage, just adding in ingredients from your kitchen cupboards and it leaves the most amazing calming atmosphere as well. And I think sage is absolutely wonderful for this, as well as a lot of other key benefits. It's got an astringent and toning impact, so it can help to tighten up your skin and minimize those pores on your face. It's anti-inflammatory, so it can help with irritated skin or inflamed skin as well, just to calm it down. And it adds antioxidants to protect your skin, and also can help with age spots as well. Something I came across during my research when I looked at this was really quite intriguing, and that was there have been some recent clinical trials showing that fresh sage extract can help with menopausal symptoms, such as reducing things like hot flashes and night sweats. So, and this is because sage contains phytoestrogen and the thujone that I mentioned earlier. They reckon that this influences brain function and hormone balance. So just a note there that what they did during these trials was use sage leaf extract via capsules. So obviously sage essential oil should never be taken orally, but it's actually quite pleasing to share some scientific information with you. They were small trials, but hopefully that can lead to some bigger ones, and possibly we can extract some information of how helpful sage can actually be in that situation. So I hope that you have enjoyed sharing the benefits of sage with me, and thank you for watching.